Okay, so for this PowerPoint, I'm actually going to have two separate videos, and I do want to recap from what we're looking at chapter 19 to chapter 20, because what we're going to see now are more postmodern art movements. And if you'll remember where we were looking at before, we saw the Impressionists, and the Impressionists were painting from light. They were interested in the reflection of light off the surface of, let's say we're talking about a lily pond or the Rowan Cathedral, and it was loose, and at first it was not appreciated, but later it was, because it was deemed to be innovative. And then we also looked at artworks where artists were like Vincent van Gogh, who painted really thick, and he started to use more of his emotions. So we go from there to what we're looking at chapter 20. We're going to see the next major art movement is the Fauves. A lot of people find this type of work really attractive, so I don't know if you'll agree or not, but anyway, let's just kind of discuss what Fauvism is. Kind of the lead of who inspired this would be Vincent van Gogh and Gauguin, because of their use of colors and emotions. What we're going to see with the Fauves, and again, these are artists inspired by those previous, are going to be non-descriptive color, and that means that it's not the local color. We learned about local color in part 2. And that meaning, like, if a tree trunk's brown, then you paint it brown, but that's going to go away here. Also, patterns are going to become more present. I think that's also influenced essentially from Japanese prints, because that inspired Vincent van Gogh towards the end, and distorted perspectives. So let's just keep looking at this. So Matisse's Red Room, this is towards the late Fauvist paintings. You can see that he was playing around with pictorial space. He was kind of flattening out the pictorial space by using the same color and similar pattern that's on the wall as to what's the tablecloth. And he chose to use this bright red because he wanted to have a sense of energy and activity within the interior space. What we're looking at, I guess, is a dining room. And then if you think about it, it really contrasts with the kind of blue and green and outside the window, where it feels more calm and relaxed. Cubism is the next major art movement. A lot of people know that Picasso he has been determined as the artist that kind of gave birth to this. But no kidding. If you look at Cezanne in your book, I personally think that he really started Cubism. But anyway, we'll focus on Picasso. So this is Picasso's painting of the old guitarist. This is during his blue period. And notice how organic the rendering is of the figure. He does look kind of frail and sickly. Picasso was depressed when he did the blue period works because I think he lost his best friend and brother. They all died within a year, and he was just kind of down. And so he painted like this. But as he kind of lifts out of that and he gets exposure to artworks from, especially from Africa, he starts to play around with abstracting the image. And so we start to see, okay, these kind of odd looking figures. And what he's doing is, I'm going to come back to this and just show you, he actually steals this African wooden mask from an exhibit. And he's just so inspired by what he sees, because it's really different from most of the sculptures that he has grown up around viewing in Europe. He loves how it's very angular, like there's a very simple kind of ellipse eyes, a triangular looking nose. And if you really explore African masks, you'll see that there's a lot of geometry. Sometimes even in the lips there are 2 triangles. And so it doesn't have that same kind of facial features, the soft curves, as you'd see in parts of Asia and Europe. And if you remember back to Egyptian art in the tomb painting we looked at, they combined both the profile in the frontal view. Well, he takes that, and you can definitely see the African mask on the two right figures, but if you look closely, he does combine looking at the eyes and the positions of each body part, even the arms, the chest, the legs. He's combining just not only the front view but the profile view into one. And in some ways, if you I didn't see that in the bodies, at least you might see that in the facial features. He abstracts it to the point where it almost just doesn't even, I mean, it's hard to even identify, was that front or was that the profile view? Because it just becomes these simplistic geometric shapes. And this is as he's advanced more into Cubism. Okay. So now we're going to look at early abstraction within the United States. Alfred Stiltzkitz was an artist that we actually looked at in our chapter on photography. He had the ship and there was a man with the white hat. I don't know if you'll remember that. He was an art critic. He owned an art gallery. And he was actually married temporarily, or I don't know if they actually ever divorced. I know they were separated towards the end, with artist Georgia O'Keeffe. Now, some of us may look at this and think, hey, that's not abstract looking, it's a flower. I can tell it's a flower, but it's how she chooses to zoom in to the flower. And in some of hers, it almost just looks like these very organic series of colors kind of coming out from the center, and you lose really identifying if it is a flower or what type of flower, because what she's really interested in is creating a type of composition that is ambient. It has a sense of almost like a musical score to her personally, and so that's the abstracted part, is that, you know, she's choose to kind of crop the outer portions of the flower and to zoom in. Now, Surrealism takes off in Europe. In particular, we see an artist from Spain, Salvador Dali. This is believed to be a self-portrait. You see this biomorphic form that is sleeping. There's the eye that's closed. And a lot of people believe that that's the self-portrait of Dali. You can see that he has fears within his dreams. The clocks are melting, like time is getting away from him. He also thought of ants related to fear. They're attacking, they're destroying time. And then we're in this landscape that on the right, you could almost say it's believable, but then you start to look at the edge of the shoreline, especially on the left side, and you're removed from reality, just the landscape itself. And then again, when you look at the clocks in this biomorphic form, it further lets you know you're in a dream. Dali was good friends with the psychologist Sigmund Freud, and he thought that there was a lot of important symbolisms within one's dreams. Okay, so the Harlem Renaissance is an art movement. It takes place in New York by African-American artists. As you can see, it's writers, artists, musicians, intellectuals. A lot of what they want to see is within their own community to see progress. And Aaron Douglas he's actually was a magazine illustrator, but his paintings were just so, the craftsmanship, the vision he had were just so superb that he really became known as a painter, not an illustrator for just the magazine. And what Harlem Renaissance artists seek to do in general is they want to show a pride in being African American. So they put African American sensibilities within the painting. In this sense, you can see the figures, which in a lot of probably what he would have seen in his time, at least, is that they were maybe Caucasian looking, Noah and his family. And in this case, he's imposed them to have features and to have a darker skin color, at least that's the impression, to give it African American sensibilities. And there's also this, I love the color choices. We go from a really dark, almost grayish purple to a yellow, which we know those are complementary colors, and it creates a nice contrast. And then the lightning, because we know there's storm and rain, and the animals 2 by 2 are going onto the ark. It's just a very active, very interesting composition to look at. Okay, so we're going to stop there, and I'm going to make one more video that's going to combine the last two chapters.